we have at least 50 different ETs descriptions and pictures out there. Which out there meaning in our world. Which one of those, if any, would be the closest to the face on Sphinx?
Hi.
And if there's none, say none.
Well, there are, but if I start to specify, it could be taken the wrong way by yourself, by your viewers.
I will cut this portion out. This will just be for Sarah and I. Did the same group of ETs that assisted the Egyptians in building their pyramids assist the other pyramid builders on Earth?
Because the original, no, I shouldn't say original, the ETs who were thought of as gods and assisted the Egyptians with the pyramids, the specific godlike ET that helped with the pyramids, there were two of them. But there were others of their race in various other parts of the world. And they assisted in their own way. So, in a way, you could say that those ETs, yes, assisted all the pyramid builders around the world. But their individual characteristics were brought through those pyramids. So there were slight differences because of who each individual was, who was helping them. One, not sure how you would say this, but in the Asian continent, I guess you could say, didn't stop with pyramid-like structures. And I'm not sure where this is, but there is an ancient it's more than just a building. It's not a building. It's a structure, but it's a conglomerate of structures in, what would you call it?
Cambodia?
Well, that wasn't what I was thinking of, but it's either Cambodia or one of those other countries in that area.
Okay.
Constructed quite the large area of buildings that still stand today. They're not pyramids, but they have a lot of similar characteristics. That's kind of weird.
There is a community, a preserve, if you would, from what I understand, in Cambodia, that is very large and was built a long, long time ago, and no one knows what its purpose was. Mm-hmm. Could that be the one you're referring to?
Probably, because this is large. It's beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Intriguing.
Mm-hmm. And intricate at the same time.
And intricate, very. It was another way of paying homage to the godlike entity that taught them so much. And for the most part, they remembered it for much longer than the Egyptians ever did, or any of the other areas ever remembered. What, the mathematics,
Right.
the physics, the astronomy involved generations. Just within a few generations, that knowledge would be lost and misunderstood, and the monuments, if you will, became mystical or whatever, and they still are in a lot of places. And so is this one that I'm referring to. And I believe, if I am correct, okay, that it was a female who put her own spin, shall we say, on the concepts of the pyramids. And it was her. What did I do?
You hit the camera stand.
Did I mess it up?
No, it's still okay. It'll just be jumpy at that one spot.
Okay. Well, I like to gesture a lot.
I've noticed you do the most.
Yeah, that could be very dangerous, apparently. Anyway, but yeah, she put her own ideas into this complex of buildings and helped them to help the local peoples, the indigenous peoples, to construct it how she wanted it, but utilizing what she had already taught them. And hence the beauty and the longevity, in your way of thinking, of this complex. And its only purpose really was to acknowledge her existence, to thank her for the knowledge she imparted to them, for taking care of them, which she did until she left as well, which actually was, they were all, as a group, told to go back home.
Told by their superiors or their governments or
superiors, you can call them superiors.
Okay.
Their people said, no, you guys are not supposed to be doing this. You gotta go home.
Oh, too much influence.
Too much. Especially since within, like I said, just a few generations, that knowledge would be lost. But I believe the one that we just talked about
in Cambodia
or wherever it was, those people retained more of the knowledge for longer than most other people.
Based on what you were just talking about and what some other visitors have mentioned to me, I'm going to ask a question. It might be way out there in left field, but if it is, so what?
All right.
Was Earth an ET outpost or colony at one time?
No.
Okay.
Not per se, no. It's been visited. As we just discussed, it's been assisted. The people have.
Right.
But not in the manner you're thinking.
Okay. We read in some of the ancient Indian writings that there was a great war at one time. Well, with magnificent weapons and all that stuff, was that really two alien sects fighting each other?
I believe that was part of the. No, it wasn't. I was mistaken. But yes, a couple of different factions of extraterrestrials were fighting. Should not have been. They did too much destruction to Earth and its peoples at the time, which was frowned upon. They showed too much technology, shall we say, to the peoples of the time who did not understand it.
Well,
nobody won that war, as a matter of fact, but it was a smaller, I mean, it wasn't like a global thing. It was just these two factions, and there were, I guess you could call them their military fighting until someone else came along, broke it up, and sent them all scurrying like they were naughty children.
So it was a third ET had intervened. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was that the Global Alliance?
Not a global alliance.
I meant Galactic Alliance.
Galactic Alliance, Federation, whatever you want to call it.
Their military stepped in, huh?
Well, they didn't have a military. They didn't need one.
You don't need one. Just have to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. And they were not in their infancy, but they've grown a lot since then. The Alliance has grown and included many, many more, including now these two factions who were fighting eons ago.
Yeah. What were they fighting over in India?
They each wanted to, they were actually two factions of the same species. And they were fighting over sovereignty over the peoples that were below.
Oh.
Which was stupid.
Yeah, it still goes on now, too.
Yes.
There exists in Ohio, in the United States, a mound shaped like a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
What is its significance?
It's significant to those who built it.
Why? What was their belief structure when they built it? Is that...
It's a complex answer because they were very aware of the importance of serpents in their own existence. It has to do somewhat with their knowledge as it had deteriorated somewhat from their original, what they knew, what they had been taught by extraterrestrials. It deteriorated to where they thought of those beings, the ETs, as gods, or at least godlike. And then they began to associate them with the stars. Constellations, you call them.
Yes.
And they noticed that some of them formed a sort of a serpent. And there were many constellations that seemed to have a lot of curves in them. So they began to value those serpents. or any serpent. And they believed that they were honoring their gods, or the godlike beings, who, by the way, did have a slight reptilian appearance, which just added to their belief that by building the mound in the shape of a serpent would give honor to the gods, would reflect their knowledge of astronomy as it was at the time that they built them. And they did include, at the base of the mounds, they did include the mound, I should have said. I think I put a plural on there.
You did.
Sorry. One mound, it just is serpent-shaped. And they used it for burial of their chiefs and their highly valued members, like the healers and even musicians. And they would, if they had value, if they gave value to artifacts, jewelry, instruments, things, they buried those with the people that they valued after they passed. And they believed that by being underneath the serpent, it helped them, these people, to make their way into the heavens to be with their gods. But as they built the mound, it took a lot of time and effort, in your way of thinking. And they began to just build the mound. They stopped burying artifacts and people, and they just thought of it as more of, see, we haven't forgotten you, gods. And then,
But the gods had forgotten them.
not really.
No? Okay.
No. But the time that the gods, the so-called gods, the ETs, had done what they had come to do. They imparted knowledge. And they were aware that it was deteriorating as the generations went on, but that was okay. The mound was still there. There was something still within those people to cause them to complete the mound and revere it. Just believed basically that having that mound and revering the mound itself and in its serpent form, which was difficult for them to maintain after a while. But there were those who were a little more enlightened, retaining a little more of the knowledge, who directed them to finish it in such a way that it wouldn't deteriorate. It would not, even though the people's knowledge and abilities were deteriorating. That is the way of the early humans. And even, shall I say, you, current human beings. Although there are those who are rediscovering some of this information, they're in awe that all this knowledge, all this information, all these abilities were had by ancient civilizations all over your planet, all over Gaia. And the excitement of rediscovering it is carrying a lot of the general enlightenment of humanity. into the next phase. But I'm getting off point. You wondered about the serpent mound, and now you know.
So if they lost sight of putting their leaders and stuff underground, under the mound. I can't say that word very well. I take it then there's at a certain point, so to speak, that there will be no more leaders underneath the mound. It'll just be all whatever it is they built.
Yes, and they did not bury their dead in the mound any longer. Maybe I wasn't clear on that.
No, you were. I'm just
okay.
Making sure I understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
So, which end of the mound started first?
The head.
The head? Mm-hmm. Is there any significance to the head?
Well, is there significance to yours?
I don't think so.
There is. Without the head, there's no point in having a body.
I've been reading a book on the known ETs to humans. There's quite a few.
Oh, yes.
And I noticed there's like two sides. There's a side that wants to do good and follow the cosmic law of one. And then there's the other side that does the service to self thing. Is that what you interpret it as? I see you shaking your head.
This is a shake. This is a nod.
Oh, I saw the shake.
I didn't know I shook my head. I thought I nodded. Anyway.
I also saw a shake.
Yeah,
I guess I did.
You got your wires crossed.
Easily enough done.
Yep.
Yeah, just as human beings are quite varied in their propensities and their desires and their knowledge, all the hundreds of beings, extraterrestrials as you call them, have likewise varied. Oh, I know what you're after. Yes. There are specific peoples who desire to assist humanity to raise frequencies, to choose to go to the more peaceful and loving and accepting earth. Then, but of course there are those who just want to see what they can do, what they can get away with. None of them, in spite of some of your scaremongering human fellows, none of them are truly malevolent. However, if they were given the freedom to do what they want, it could turn into a bad thing for humanity or for Earth. They've already done enough influence like that. And just encourage humans who are capable of doing those things themselves, as you know. But more of the beings who are truly contacting your fellow humans, the vast majority of them are here to teach, to enlighten, to encourage good things.
That's what they were saying. The majority of them are here to do just as you had said. Mm-hmm. But there are a few that are trying to cause trouble.
Yeah.
And there, according to what I was reading, there is a galactic alliance that keeps those ones under control, or try to keep them under control.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Okay.
tries to minimize the effect that they have.
Does lucid dreaming and shape shifting happen in other dimensions?
Oh, yeah.
I would think
Other
so.
dimensions where corporeal beings are attempting to become more enlightened. That's one way that they can achieve that.
So whenever we do astral project, Sarah and I don't remember any of it, but we're told that we do it quite often, and we meet other aliens there. Are they also astral projecting from wherever they live? And we meet in the astral plane?
Those particular ones, yes, because they are corporeal in their, or on their planet, or in their dimension. So they also have cycles of rest/sleep, depending on how they physiologically recharge and regenerate. So yes, when they go into their deep, restful state, they astral project. And you'll cross paths, and they're as pleased to meet you as you are to meet them.
Now, in previous sessions, you had said that both Sarah and I have met some ETs astrally, but you wouldn't tell us who they were.
No.
Why is that?
You'll find out soon enough on your own.
Okay. Any guidance can you offer?
Anything that I would say more concretely could skew the experience.
Okay. Of all the different species that there are in this universe, do humans have one of the wider ranges of emotions?
I guess so. I mean, there are so many, I don't even know the full number of physical beings in this universe.
Someone said there's 400,000 civilizations.
Civilizations.
Yeah.
And how
And each
many
one
beings
has
in each
a lot of
civil?
beings.
Yeah. And there's probably more than 400,000.
Yeah.
And whenever you say civilizations, would it be the planet Earth is a civilization? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's 400,000 inhabited planets.
Almost all of which are very Earth-like. Believe it or not.
I do.
But they are.
Why is that? Why are inhabited planets more like Earth?
Because the inhabitants are basically humanoid, very human-like. As you are learning, there are those who could pass for humans and have been for, a century or more. Mingling and working alongside human beings because they look. Then there are variants that make it untenable for them to do that, but they still have head, eyes, some kind of a hearing thing, and some kind of a nose and mouth, and their system is 2 legs, 2 arms. And I'm not sure which came first, the chicken or the egg here.
They both came at the same time since there's no time.
This is true. Very good. But the vast majority of habitable planets are Earth-like, primarily in that they are oxygen-rich. Their atmospheres are oxygen-rich. So it doesn't take a whole lot of adaptation to go from one of these planets to another for all the beings, because they can get Actually, I think she just read that, but it's true. And if you haven't read it yet, you will.
Mm-hmm.
It just made sense. This configuration, physical,
Physiological configuration.
yes,
Yeah.
is highly adaptable. And hence the universe, source, put it all together.
That's the template.
Yeah.
Are grays also humanoid?
Yes.
Okay. In my head they are, but I didn't want to say something if I was wrong.
And the shorter grays that most people think of, they're the ones that have manipulated their DNA and cloned themselves to the point where they can't reproduce anymore. But there are others whose skin tones are grayish, but they're taller and there are other differences as well. So not to confuse them all.
And not to say that we could have a heart transplant between a different humanoid species of one of those other 400,000 inhabitable.
It's probably not advisable.
Because our DNA will be slightly different.
DNA, the
We have
bacteria.
enough problems with
Yeah.
organ. Yeah, but I mean, I just mean that, like you said, the template is the structure of it, the physiological.
Yeah.
Whatever you said
I don't know.
is
It's amenable. It's very modifiable and
Yes.
amenable and
and therefore
Adaptable.
adaptable.
The source uses
Convenient.
it. Adaptable. That's what you
Blood
said.
types probably differ,
Probably.
and and any sort of heart transplant or any other organ transplant would probably not be a good idea. But
But we could all rock some sunglasses
yes,
because we'd have noses and ears to hold them.
some of them don't have very good noses
Or
For
probably
that.
ears too.
or ears.
They don't stick
Right.
out. Anyway, not
But
important.
no. But anyway,
Sorry.
point being,
Several locations around the world, archaeologists have found skeletons with elongated skulls. Where did those skulls originate, or those beings originate?
those particular beings originated. They were very human-like, however, with the skulls. I'm not getting the answer as to which, but they began. They were a group of ETs. That word is hard to say, extraterrestrials. No wonder your own people have trouble saying it. Anyway, there was a group of ETs, came to Earth, thousands of years ago. Not necessarily to seed humanity, but to live and work and assist a certain group of humans who were just beginning their evolution, basically. And they were of one of the groups that it didn't totally take, shall we say. It was a failed experiment.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense based on the book I'm currently reading.
But your archaeologists don't want to have
No,
anything to do with
they
that.
don't.
But the elongated heads belong to the beings who lived amongst the early humans that they thought they were attempting to help. But it wasn't the way it was supposed to be necessarily. Not that it was bad, but it just didn't work out the way they thought, or the way the ETs thought it would, or even the early humans that they were part of.
What didn't work out?
The experiment, the
The ET experiment, or the experiment between the early humans and the ETs?
Well, the experiment was actually from the ETs.
Okay.
But the early humans, those ETs were trying to bring things out of and for those early humans that it was too much too soon. Those humans were not ready.
Okay.
So the experiment ultimately failed, and the ETs died out. The early humans, many of them in that group died out, but many more were able to go out and mingle with other groups of early humans and, blend their
So when
physiology.
these aliens arrived, were they just dropped off?
They arrived in a ship.
But that's mean, did the ship land, leave them off, and then exit again? Or did some of them survive and leave?
There were some who stayed on the ship, and it's funny how you would describe it as being dropped off at the corner of
Yep.
these two intersections. No.
Yep.
But
There's the Nazca lines are pointing where we need to go.
not quite. Anyway,
I know.
but it was more of the ships travel in such a way that I'm not going to divulge because I don't fully understand it.
Just a quick
Anyway.
one word of how they did. Did they fold time, fold space? Did they do as Bashar's people do, just think about it and they're there?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, that's
And then the
enough.
ones who were going to do the mingling with human beings, with the early humans, stayed, and the others in the ship left
Okay.
because it was an experiment. You don't
So-
always stick around.
Well, so in a way, you could say the aliens had an outpost here.
Oh, there were
Yeah.
many
Yes.
types of what you might call an outpost, but they were
There
more like
hundreds,
well, they were what?
hundreds of them.
Oh, man, maybe not hundreds, but more like colonies.
Well,
Colonies of civilizations. Some worked, some didn't.
okay. I'll leave it at that.
And it depended on which ETs what they wanted to accomplish. Because there were a number of quite a few different ETs coming to Earth to see what they could do. And they would experiment and it didn't work. Or many experimented and ended up seeding human civilizations.
Because the experiment worked.
And the experiment worked and they grew. So the ETs kind of left, okay, this is good. And then humans being what they are, things happened. And a lot of that, say, technology, that knowledge would have therefore been lost. Maybe tiny pockets of humans remembered some of it. And it has come down through your physical linear history as mythology, as who the gods were and who they were not and what happened. And yeah, human beings are good at twisting all kinds of stuff. But they had help twisting it from some of the ETs that, not everybody is perfect. And even ETs who were trying to help humanity grow there were some of them that made mistakes, and there were some that, for whatever reason, their desires went askew. So that didn't help the humans much. And I mean, many variables.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in the last session, I had asked, or maybe the session before that, if you could find more information out about what the Nazca lines represent. How was your quest on that?
The Nazca lines were originally put there as markers, shall we say, for any extraterrestrial group to know there was something going on there. And like I said, then things kind of went, as you say, went south or sideways or whatever. And much knowledge was lost. However, the peoples tried making more of those lines based on the little bit of knowledge they still had to try to bring those particular ETs back. And at that point, it was decided not to do that, not to come back.
Okay.
So that's why some of the lines don't quite have the same intensity, shall we say,
That's a good word.
as some of the others. Because as time went on, this group of humans forgot exactly what they had to do or how it was supposed to work or what, just God's come back. And as time went on, more and more of that knowledge was lost, and they ended up, what are we doing? Squiggly lines here, whatever. So there are degrees of the word potency comes to mind.
Okay.
Of all the pictures, there are more to discover.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it started out to be an amazing thing, and it ended up being a pitiful thing.
A what?
Pitiful.
Oh.
Pitiful.
So in other words, your answer to the question is no. I have no further information as to what they mean. Or the meaning behind individual.
Right.
Pictures.
That's not for me to
Pictures.
divulge,
Okay.
but to explain kind of what they are and why, that I could do. And did. I hope I did that to your satisfaction.
When Mars lost its magnetic field and atmosphere, was all the population of Mars still on the planet at that time, or had some already left the planet before that event?
Most had already found alternative digs, so to speak.
Okay. That's what I was
There were
hoping to be the
many,
answer.
there were quite a few living underground at that point as well.
Are there?
They're not still there.
No, I know they wouldn't be there now. They'd be dead. Are there habitats still there? They're enclosures or domiciles, whatever. Are they still on the planet, underneath the planet? Or are they all collapsed? Or don't you know?
It isn't as simple as that.
Explain, please.
They're a different species. Their planet was very different at that time. So their methods of existing under the surface are not necessarily the same methods that humans would use to be under Gaia's surface.
Do you have any insight to explain what it was like for them to live underground? How did it interact with them?
They made it comfortable enough because they were already pretty comfortable on the surface of their planet. They didn't necessarily have skyscrapers and
Right.
and push button phones.
Yeah. I know that.
They were more in tune with their planet,
Yes.
which is how they discovered that things were going to change and they needed to.
Oh, so they did know it ahead of time.
A good portion of their scientists knew ahead of time and began to disseminate that information gradually so as not to cause a panic, and helped the majority of them begin to travel elsewhere. They had help. Hi, Haisha. From ETs,
Of course.
and found new homes. They didn't have quite the vast population that Earth has either, to begin with. And those who didn't leave to go elsewhere of those, most of them had already ensconced themselves underground. The remnants of natural volcanic tubes and tunnels and stuff, plus ones that they created artificially, are still there. But you're not going to find a dinner plate or a coffee pot or a television set.
Would you find something like a stone chair or something cut out where they would sit down or something like that, or a raised platform for a bed?
There might be some that tickles. Some raised platforms, and they were more apt to sit, shall we say, cross-legged.
Okay, so they were bipedal.
And yeah, and would sit on their carpeting on the floor, on the stone floor. And they might have carved small, relatively speaking, small flat tabletop kind of places, or shelving for storage, or anyway, it's difficult to sum up their civilization.
Oh, yes.
In one neat little package.
Mm-hmm.
But they had somewhat of an advanced warning, so they were able to, as I said, find elsewhere to live. The ones who went underground, it was because time was running out. But there was kind of a way of thinking amongst many of them that they didn't know if they could get to another viable planet in time, and they started working on underground domiciles. That's a nice word that you said. Places where they could take refuge. But they knew even if they did, it would be short-lived. But it bought them time, so to speak, for others who had left fled the planet, found some other place to live, and they would send their ships back and pick up more people and take them. I mean, they had some time to make the move gradually, shall we say.
Okay.
And there were a few stubborn ones who said they didn't care, and they stayed on the surface and went bye-bye.
Okay.
They were, I shouldn't say it quite like that. It wasn't that they were particularly stubborn or had anti-science leanings or anything like that. They just elected
To stay.
to stay, knowing what was going to happen, but they were okay with that. It was a choice.
Okay. So you mentioned they left the planet on ships. Was it ships they built, or were there ships that the ETs provided for them?
Some of each, with the help of ETs, they were able to construct.
Oh,
They had enough of the acceptance and understanding of the science necessary, but they needed that extra oomph, shall we say, from the ETs who helped them find the materials and make the designs and construction and make them big enough for a good portion of the population to go. And there were, but the ETs, different ETs, also brought their own ships and helped more of the population to go.
so
It was a combination of things.
when the population left, did they just scatter, or did they go to just one or two other planets?
A few other planets.
Will we Earthlings, as we continue our space adventures, ever meet them?
Possibly.
Could you give me some idea as to what star systems they went to?
Different ones. Depends on where they went.
Okay, I see. I'm not getting any more information. Why do aliens want us to have space flight?
Because you humans want spaceflight. So aliens want to assist you in that regard, because some aliens, as you call them, ETs, have ships that travel because they believe that those ships and they themselves are physical. They're no more physical than everything here on Gaia. Everything is energy. It's what the collective chooses to do with it. And how to do things. Different ET species in your so-called reality. Different ones have different degrees of progress, shall we say. Technical know-how. The truly enlightened don't bother with physical bodies, and they travel anywhere and everywhere they want to go. Because it's all
Now
and right there.
It's all 1 point.
Mm-hmm. However, not everyone is to that point, pun intended, yet. Therefore, there are some who utilize electrons and protons and atoms and stuff to get from one place to another in various ways. There are some that feel that they must travel, but there are an infinite number of ways of propulsion.
In the last session, I asked if you could discover where the ETs with the elongated skulls originated. Have you found that answer? You said you would attempt to find it.
I would attempt to find it, yes. Find it we did. It is not to be known yet.
Okay. Can I just ask a little bit of clarification? Were they from the Milky Way galaxy?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, okay, I can say there are 2 or 3 different species, not reptilians, but that have worked together.
Do they travel together?
Oh, yeah.
In the same ship?
If
Or
they want
ships?
to, or they
Okay.
meet somewhere. But they work together to develop, I suppose, a hybrid of sorts that also spends some time here on Earth. And it's that hybrid that they concocted, that they worked together to develop it, had the elongated skulls.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But names, as you say, are just names.
Yeah.
So I believe that was what, maybe I said too much.
It doesn't matter.
But-
Would you like me to cut this portion from the video for public release?
No. No, that's fine.
Okay. Previously, you stated that most of the ETs want us, humankind, to raise our frequency so we can join the Galactic Federation. What about those that do not want us to do this? What is their hang-up?
What is their hang-up? There's a multitude of hang-ups, as you stated. There are ETs out there who want to exploit humankind, want to exploit Gaia, who are not that overly friendly like the ETs that really are helping and want to help and look forward to humanity joining that federation, as you called it. But there have been ETs who have elected not to join the Federation because they just are a little more exclusive, I could say. They're not as eager to embrace all these other ones. Not that they have any issues with any of them. They're just a more self-involved. That's not even giving them fair description there, but yeah, there aren't very many ETs who know about Gaia and humanity and and aren't the friendliest, shall we say. But there are many more who do want to help, want to welcome humanity and humans into their federation and with all its wonders and glory, and welcome them with open arms. And then there are those who just aren't interested, and that sort of expansion, which is their prerogative.
Okay. That got me thinking about the Voyager probe that we sent out into space. Basically giving whoever intercepts it a roadmap back to planet Earth. Will those ever cause any issues?
Well, they already have with some radicals here on Earth,
No, I meant with aliens.
but no, mostly because there haven't been very many who have intercepted those.
Have any?
A couple.
Have they intercepted them, then released them again, or just fly by?
Well,
take a look?
intercepted them enough to know what they were doing, what they were sent out for.
Oh, their intention,
Their,
so to
their
speak.
purpose. Yeah.
So in other words, they scanned them, so to speak.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But they did glean the information, and were aware that there were humans who felt that that was inviting all the wrong kinds. But any of those wrong kinds, I don't think any of them intercepted the Voyager. But the idea that there are a few, relatively speaking, a few humans who think that wasn't a good idea because it was giving a roadmap to that exploitation kind of a thing. But those beings who feel that way about Earth were already here before Voyager probes went out. And by that time, the entities who wanted to help humanity and Gaia were already here as well, and wouldn't have allowed it to happen that way, wouldn't have allowed it to be misused.
Back in session 17, the visitor mentioned that an ET being can tell if a human will harm it or not. How do they sense this?
You must understand that the ETs who have been and still are present on this planet are highly evolved themselves. So they don't see auras necessarily. But yes, that's how they sense whether there's negative energies coming off a person or positive ones. It's a sense. Humans have that sense.
Yeah, I know.
They do too. Theirs is just more, shall we say, refined.
In past sessions, you mentioned that ET species view us as an immature, warlike beings. What do ETs think of our venture into space at this time?
A necessary part of humanity's evolution, and at the same time, it's valueless. What do you think of that?
Define valueless, please.
It's worthless.
Define worthless, please. Why do you say those things? That's what I want to know.
All right, ask the proper questions.
Yes, I'm learning. What are the what and why and where and how and all that are the reasons you You use words like valueless.
In this particular instance of attempting space flight, etc., it's good for your scientists to learn what they want to learn. And yet, what is the point of trying to go into space when ETs, some are already here, others will be coming more openly, and that will change everything because humanity will learn more of the secrets to travel through your universe, although humanity is not yet mature enough to know those secrets because of the warlike propensities.